Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah. Here comes the.
He's back. That's right, folks. Mr. Carlos Dunlap is returning to Seattle on a 2-year, $16.6 million contract with $8.5 million guaranteed. And he was only the best edge rusher in Seattle last season. In only 8 games, playoffs excluded, he had 5 sacks, 18 pressures, a multitude of quarterback hits, and 2 game-saving sacks against the Arizona Cardinals and the Washington football team. However, it did come with a cost, but we'll touch on that just a bit. For those of you who watched our most recent upload, we actually called the re-signing of Carlos Dunlap, and I don't think many people are very surprised seeing as how he made such a huge and a significant impact upon the Seattle Seahawks pass rush last season. Look, prior to his arrival, the Seahawks had accumulated 12 sacks in 7 games, on pace for one of the worst marks in all the NFL, but upon his arrival, the team was instantly sparked and automatically became one of the best pass rushers in all the NFL. What are you waiting for, man? If you haven't already, please be sure to hit that subscribe button for us. Join the team, join the squad, join the family, Team Steezy. Be sure to hit that subscribe button for us. Leave a like and drop a comment if you enjoyed. And for more SteezyBandz content, be sure to find us on all social media platforms at SteezyBandz, especially on Instagram and TikTok, where we upload a bunch of other content. Don't forget to tell a friend to hit that subscribe button as well. Yet again, you're tuning in to SteezyBandz, and let's get to cooking. As I mentioned in the title, Mr. Carlos Dunlap is back, Seattle's best pass rusher, but it did come at a price. And that price was defensive tackle Jarran Reed, Seattle's starting defensive tackle for the last couple of years, and he had a couple of nice seasons in Seattle. There was his 2018 breakout year in which he had 10.5 sacks, and last season he totaled the second highest number of sacks in a season, and his Seattle tenure was 6.5. But I don't think Seattle fans should be too upset about his departure. Carlos Dunlap, like I said earlier, provided a significant spark and impact on the Seattle defense as a whole. And prior to Dunlap's arrival in Seattle, it's not like Jarran Reed was doing too much cooking. As I said earlier in the intro, he had 1 sack prior to Carlos Dunlap's arrival, and he had 5.5 with him in the fold. And I know a lot of people are going to talk about, oh, but he's a run stuffer and we still need to stop the run. Well, let's not forget, Poona Ford is also one of the best run stuffers in all of football, and it's much easier to replace a defensive tackle who's a run stuffer than it is a defensive end who can get after the quarterback and get after the quarterback a pretty good number of times. With the release of Jarran Reed, the Seahawks save about $9 million in cap space with the $5 million dead cap charge. And for those of you asking, oh, why didn't Seattle just trade Jarran Reed to accumulate more draft picks, seeing as how the Seahawks only have 3 picks in this upcoming draft? Well, Jarran Reed pretty much destroyed any chances of that happening with his tweet yesterday signaling his time in Seattle coming to an end. Yes, Seattle will miss Jarran Reed and his ability to stuff the run and sometimes get after the quarterback, but Jarran Reed, in my personal estimation, is a player that is heavily reliant on the talent around him. Think back to his 2018 season when he had a career-high 10.5 sacks. When you look around the league, not that many defensive tackles are adept at getting pressure or creating pressure, much less getting after the quarterback in terms of sacks. Well, when you go back to that season, Jarran Reed was playing alongside Frank Clark, who had a career-high 13 sacks his last season with the Seahawks. And like I mentioned earlier, Jarran Reed's most impactful time came when Carlos Dunlap was in the lineup. And so without him in the lineup, he didn't really do too much. Yes, he's stuffing the run, but in today's NFL, defensive tackles who are clearly just run stoppers don't get paid as much and aren't as valuable nearly as defensive tackles who can get after the quarterback. And so yes, the Seahawks are going to miss Jarran Reed, but if you have the opportunity to replace Jarran Reed with a guy like Carlos Dunlap, I'm sure 10 times out of 10, any Seattle fan or any person in the Seattle front office would do that in a heartbeat. Best of luck to Jarran Reed, but Carlos Dunlap, welcome back to Seattle, and we're going to be looking at one of the most loaded pass rushers in Seattle since, I think, the 2013 season. You look at Carlos Dunlap, Kerry Hyder Jr., Poona Ford. The Seahawks just re-signed Al Woods to a 1-year, $3 million contract earlier today, not to mention LJ Collier, Rasheem Green, Poona Ford, if I didn't already say his name, Darrell Taylor, Alton Robinson, etc., 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 etc. In other news around the league, it has been reported recently that Richard Sherman and the Seattle Seahawks are open to a reunion. If you ask me, I would love to see Richard Sherman back in Seattle, as I believe that he'll provide that alpha male presence that Seattle is kind of lacking right now, and that's no disrespect to Bobby Wagner, Jamal Adams, or Russell Wilson, or any of the other alpha males in the Seattle locker room. What I mean by that is Richard Sherman was the alpha male in Seattle before Russell Wilson, and credit to head coach Bill Marsh. He actually was the one who kind of shed some light on that point by saying that Richard Sherman is the alpha male that Seattle needs. So if you're watching this, shout out Coach Marsh. But with that being said, going back to the Rams playoff loss, remember when DK Metcalf threw a temper tantrum and no one was able to keep him under wraps? Well, a guy like Richard Sherman will be able to come in and check a guy like DK Metcalf. He's not going to allow a guy like DK Metcalf ruin what we have going for us on offense. Richard Sherman is not going to let that go, and he's going to be the one to check a guy like DK Metcalf. And so, yes, the Seahawks do have a need at cornerback, and yes, they are familiar with Richard Sherman, and yes, Richard Sherman is no longer one of the elite cornerbacks in all of football, but he's still a very serviceable player. As I said earlier, Seattle's going to have a loaded pass rush this upcoming season. What happened the last time Richard Sherman had a loaded pass rush in front of him? Well, back in 2019, he was second team All-Pro, finished with an 89 Pro Football Focus rating, and was one of the best cornerbacks in all of football. I don't care what anyone says. He had 3 interceptions that year, and yes, he did get burnt in the Super Bowl by Sammy Watkins in particular, but he still has a lot left in the tank. I know he said he has 2 years before he retires, but he does still live in Seattle, so why not finish your career where it all began? Now, a lot of people will point to the fact that, oh, Russell Wilson and Richard Sherman don't get along. Well, the last time these two teams met on the field, Russell Wilson actually met with Richard Sherman after the game, and they had a jersey swap. Not only that, they took a pretty good picture together, and you can see both of them smiling. And so as long as Russell Wilson okays the move, I think that all is well. I think at this point in their careers, both men are looking to win and win big. They want to go back to the Super Bowl, and the last time the team was in the Super Bowl, well, these two were teammates. And so I think that there's no beef between the two, and I think that ultimately both only care about winning. Both have put the past in the past, and I think both will be able to work together. As I said, the Seahawks do have a need. The only thing that might get in the way is the Seahawks' lack of cap space. According to Spotrac.com, the Seahawks have about $6 million left in cap space, but that's not even taking into account Carlos Dunlap's new deal with the Seahawks. And so if the Seahawks are going to make this work, two things have to happen. Richard Sherman has to take a below market deal, and somebody on the Seahawks has to restructure the contract. I'm not just looking at Russell Wilson. There's Bobby Wagner, Jamal Adams. A Jamal Adams extension could save some money. A Tyler Lockett extension could do the same, as with Dwayne Brown. Maybe a Bobby Wagner restructure is on the horizon. Either way, Seattle has to make a move or two to create the necessary cap space to sign a guy like Richard Sherman. But when you take into consideration the fact that one of the better corners in the market, Kyle Fuller, signed a 1-year, $9.5 million deal, it's hard for me to see Richard Sherman's getting any more than that, and I don't even see him getting paid $8 or $7 million. I think the highest he could possibly get is $6 to $6.5 million, maybe $7 million if it's loaded with incentives, or if there's backloaded years, or if there's voidable years, like has been a theme with some of the other Seahawks signings. But I think you can expect a contract around that neighborhood, and a good benchmark to look at is Xavier Rhodes of the Indianapolis Colts. He had a resurgent year last season with the Indianapolis Colts, but there wasn't much interest in him this offseason, and so he had to settle for a 1-year, $6.5 million deal with the Indianapolis Colts. I think that's a perfect benchmark, and as long as one of the Seattle guys is looking to restructure a contract, or maybe, who knows, Seattle is able to pull off a trade or extend a Jamal or a Tyler or a Dwayne Brown, then I could definitely see Seattle bringing in Richard Sherman, and I think that they could also use Richard Sherman as a power play. Look, in 2017, they released Richard Sherman rather than just trading him, because they wanted to show Russell Wilson that this team was all his, and that they were going to get rid of all the guys who opposed Russell Wilson in the locker room. And so with Russell Wilson backstabbing the Seahawks front office a little bit with some of his comments that he made early in the season, the Seahawks could use this as leverage and as a power play to show Russell Wilson who's really in charge and who's really boss in Seattle. Now, I hope that's not taken as a slap to the face against Russell Wilson, but at the end of the day, like I said, both these guys just want to win football games, and I truly believe from the bottom of my heart, Richard Sherman could definitely help Seattle in that department. Yes, they signed Ahkello Witherspoon, who I'm very high on, but he is a little injury prone, and so we have to take that into consideration. DJ Reed, while he was a revelation for the Seahawks last season, I don't believe he should be a winning team's #1 cornerback. I could see him slotting in as the #2 corner or even a nickel back, but I think in the long run, I don't want to see him as a #1 cornerback, but that's not a knock on him at all whatsoever. But bring him in, Richard Sherman, Trey Flowers. I hope the Seahawks can still re-sign a guy like Quentin Dunbar, who I believe still has some unfinished business in Seattle. But look for the rumors between Seattle and Richard Sherman to start picking up steam as the offseason continues to roll along, because the longer that Richard Sherman is left unsigned, the more likely it is that Seattle is able to sign him at a reduced rate. And I'm hoping that number is around $6 million, like I said earlier. But if the Seahawks are able to get him for under $6 million, then more power to them. Let me know in the comment section below, y'all. Do you guys think Richard Sherman and the Seahawks should entertain a reunion? What do you think about the Carlos Dunlap trade? Are you upset about Jerry Reed being released? Should we have traded him? I hope you guys enjoyed. While that concludes this video, you don't have to stop watching Steezy Smith content here. Be sure to check out our channel homepage for the rest of our other collabs and other videos if you missed it. Don't forget to find us on all social media platforms at Steezy Smith, Instagram, TikTok. Like I said earlier, join the family, join the team, hit that subscribe button. What are you waiting for? Tell a friend to tell a friend to also hit that subscribe button. Nothing but love, and Steezy out.